Everything has first principles. Everything. Now, if you've been attentive to this lecture, science has first principles or assumptions. For example, you have to believe in an external universe with external causes in the universe in order for science to work. If you don't believe in external causal connections, game over. You can't really do science. So you have to believe that assumption. It's an assumption. They haven't even solved what a cause and effect is and the link between them is yet. Study metaphysics and philosophy. When I did my postgrad and I did metaphysics, I was like, I'm not doing my essays on this yet. It was too much for me. It was wow. It's like they haven't sorted it out yet, especially when it comes to causality. But you have to adopt it as an assumption, a particular view as an assumption, or you have to assume it in order for science to work. So science has assumptions. Mathematics has assumptions. For example, if you study calculus or set theory, you have to believe in infinites. Although you can never observe an infinite, but you have to believe in them for it to work. And if you look into the philosophy of science, look at the list of assumptions. One of the assumptions are, infinity exists. That's it. They just have to say it exists in order for everything to work. Even maths has assumptions. Science has assumptions. Maths has first principles and assumptions. And these are important to have in order for that field of knowledge for it to grow. Politics has an assumption. The idea of freedom. Freedom itself, not political approaches to freedom, but the idea of freedom itself. The idea of freedom itself, which there is a consensus amongst philosophers that they believe that it has intrinsic value. It's not just instrumental. Freedom is not good it's not useful for a good end. Rather, it's an end in itself. It's intrinsically valuable. And when you ask, well, how do you know? They say, well, we don't have to tell you because if it's intrinsically valuable, it doesn't require evidence. They say, well, how do you take into account the fact that you think is intrinsically valuable? Do you know what the answer is in academia? You won't believe it. It's based on our intuitions. So one of the first principles here is that we can use our intuitions to basically take into account key philosophical ideas. Put that in your philosophical pipe and smoke it. Yeah? That's like, wow. So you even have that in politics. You have first assumptions and principles you have to adopt in order to make sense of the phenomenon that you're discussing or studying or trying to comprehend. Even neuroscience has assumptions. Then study Moderato, Manzotti, study Rosen, all these guys. Neuroscience is not philosophically free. You have all these popular magazines. They found consciousness in the brain, some fuzzy thing, tweaking, going up and down, some electrochemical activity in some area of the brain. No, that's just rubbish. Get the real paper, see what's really going on. It's based on an assumption. Neuroscience is based on an assumption which is philosophical. It's not even scientific. And that assumption is called physicalism, which is the philosophical approach and the philosophy of the mind that things can be reduced to physical processes but not necessarily physical bits of matter. Physicalism is a philosophical assumption that neuroscience needs in order for it to understand what's happening in the brain concerning correlations between electrochemical activity and inner subjective conscious states. There's an assumption in neuroscience. Everything has an assumption, or technically call it first principles. This is the area of metaphysics. You require first principles in order to understand the world.